This is Up Close. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. This week's episode is devoted to unusual occupations. These days, there are Israelis playing American-style football, and the commissioner of the Israel Football League stopped by our studios for an interview. And then, in the past, if you walked into a bar in Poland, you were almost guaranteed to be buying your booze from a Jew. Sarah Lawrence College professor and senior NEH scholar Glenn Diner discusses the Jewish booze business and his book, Yankel's Tavern. But first, Fox News' Brian Kilmeade shares the story of George Washington's spy ring, the subject of his book, George Washington's Secret Six. And as he revealed in the interview, a member of the tribe played a role. It's interesting to explore what made a spy back then. In a lot of ways, it's the spying that we've seen since the developments of the OSS and the CIA, where they had a cover in the sense that they were already elite in society. They owned businesses, they owned farms, what have you.
You nailed it, cover story. They said, I need a guy who had a reason to go to the city. I need a guy that had a reason to be in the city. I need a guy that had a reason to get supplies. I need a farmer. I need people who belong on Long Island. The British wanted the economy to continue to grow. They didn't want to write checks for us, but they just wanted to get rid of the army right away and reestablish dominance. And through these men and one woman, 5 men and one woman, they were able to put together a ring that really mystified the British up until maybe 50 years ago. I did find, too, to the Jewish channel, that Haim Solomon, who, as I'm studying these six, he provided a lot of financing. He provided a lot of interaction. Washington always felt he could contact to rely on him. And I think he was jailed twice in fighting and supplying for the Patriot cause. So Washington knew how to instill loyalty in people. And I think that the world took notice.
Spying is a lot in the news, period, these days. And I'm wondering, what do you think about the applicability of what happened with Washington and the Secret Six back then, the Culper Ring back then, and what it says about spying today?
You got to do what it takes to win. And yeah, you have to have values and ethics, but let me tell you something. First on the prisoners. When the British wanted to send a message, they were unbelievably brutal, hence hanging Nathan Hale. They would also starve and beat and torture our guys, and they would never let them out, and including our officers. So when Washington,
it was pre-Geneva Convention.
I was way pre-Geneva Convention. There's no gentleman, there's no Marquess of Queensberry rules either. Washington did something to get them to stop. When he caught their guys, he was ruthless to them. He said, here's your message. You do it to my guys. I'm going to get your guys. And they're going to go through the same thing as we went through. But that was the only thing that stopped the British from torturing our people. Number two, the CIA I met with, and I wanted to almost have them say to me, don't do this story. It's overblown. It's allegorical. It didn't really happen. And they said not only did it happen, some of the things that they learned on the fly in the middle of a war, we teach our guys before we let them out, even let them out in the field. So these aren't even trained spies. They're doing dead drops, encryption, invisible ink, have cover stories. We're able to withstand a series of questioning and have spines of steel. So the CIA told me, we love this story. We back up this story. So I also have this sense that if you trust your leaders, if you agree with their objectives, you have to trust them to do what's necessary to keep us safe. And to bring it to today, the NSA, I know Michael Hayden. He endorsed the book. We missed his blurb. It'll be in the paperback. I know, I've met General Alexander. I know the people involved in putting this together. And I understand when a Rand Paul gets up and says, I worry about the next leader who I can't trust, because a lot of people trusted Bush, they don't trust Obama. A lot of people love Obama, they don't trust Bush. But you have to have a fundamental trust in our leaders separate from party, and I do.
And now Israel Football League Commissioner Bezalel Friedman. The 11-team league has significant financial backing from the owner of the NFL football team, the New England Patriots, Bob Kraft. This league has Israelis hoping to make the big time by using their heads in less traditional ways. So the Israel Football League, you're trying to create professional football in Israel. Is there anything that differentiates Israel football from the football we know?
Well, I will say that we're not looking to be a professional league. We're a bunch of guys who like playing football, and we think that good football can also be a product for people to enjoy. Professional football would be an enormous expense, and we're not looking right now. We will just want to develop the sport, get people playing, get kids playing. So the goal is more amateur as of now.
So who's playing? You got old guys, young guys, rabbis?
We have every age from about 17 to 50, with the majority
Who's
being...
the 50-year-old?
50, we have a guy who is ex-Marine.
What position?
He plays defensive line.
So that's a big deal for a 50-year-old man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have guys pre-Army, post-Army, in the Army.
And so you've got 11 teams. You've got, I believe, around 600 players. How good is it? How interesting is it to watch?
I think the level really differs from team to team. You have the clear-cut contenders. You have the clear-cut cellar dwellers. And when you have a contender play a cellar dweller, you get a score like 60-6 and stuff like that. But I think our best teams could compete with a pretty good high school team. Are
you making some accommodations for observance that people here in America might not normally get?
Well, we have nothing going on Shabbat. Our games are Thursday nights, Friday mornings, and Saturday night. And we leave enough time for people to get home before Shabbat on a Friday game, or to get to the stadium after Shabbat on a Saturday night game. So the league keeps Shabbat, keeps kosher as a league.
Speaking about observance, a large issue regarding observance in Israel has been women's exclusion from many activities. But there are a lot of women who are trying to play football here in the States as kickers and what have you. Are there going to be any women in the Israel Football League?
Most fields in athletics, there's men's athletics and there's women's athletics. There's men's basketball, there's women's basketball. They don't go together. Should it happen? I don't know. It's never really been an issue for us. And as far as I know, the league is male. So what would happen, what could happen in the future, I don't know. Right now it's not much of an issue for us, so we'll leave it there.
Finally, on this week's episode, there was a time when almost everyone in Poland got their drinks from a Jew. I spoke with Glenn Diner, author of Yankel's Tavern. What you show is that Jews dominated an industry in Poland in the way that probably no industry today is dominated by any ethnicity. In Poland, 85% of bartenders, of tavern leaseholders, were Jews. It's just shocking.
It's amazing. I mean, it really shows, I think, the degree to which Jews were integrated, not socially, but definitely economically, and in some senses within the social life, because taverns form such a crucial central element to local life. It changes our conception of what Jewish life in Eastern Europe was, because we're so accustomed to this picture of anti-Semitism, violence, and the Holocaust. And, it's crucial that we learn about this violence and destruction. We try to come to terms with it. But it shouldn't inhibit us from learning about this rich history where Poles and Jews coexisted in this situation. The taverns were ultimately owned by the nobility. They would lease them to Jews, and then Jews would be selling the stuff to traveling Jewish merchants, but also local peasants. So you actually have a fair amount of cooperation and coexistence going on, which might surprise those of us who have a very negative image of Jewish life in Poland and Eastern Europe.
And so how did that color Jewish life? Because it's so hard to imagine what Jewish life today would be like if the assumption simply was that there's a Jewish industry. Even to the degree that perception exists about some industries like Wall Street or others in America, it's still very much a minority of people within those industries that are Jewish. Not so here.
So it became very controversial because the tavern was more than a tavern. It was a hotel, it was a restaurant, it was a store, a bank, because they would lend money. Jewish tavern keepers were dispensing advice and loans and even medical remedies. That puts them in a position of some power. And if so many tavern keepers are Jews, we're talking at least 85%. It might have been higher because it's hard to tell sometimes from the archival records. Well, in my book, what I show is it creates a great deal of anxiety on the part of non-Jews and social reformers who want to drive Jews out of the liquor trade. They're blaming them for the peasants becoming drunks. And it's it's not something we condone, but we can understand that anxiety. At the same time, we should always remember that the power that Jews had in this industry was limited. They only leased the taverns, and they did so because the nobility wanted only Jews to be running their taverns.
And the reason why they wanted only Jews running their taverns is pretty curious too.
So in my book, I address this idea of Jewish sobriety. The nobility had other reasons too. You know, only Jewish tavern keepers could really cater to the needs of traveling Jewish merchants. But the predominant reason seems to be this idea that Jews won't drink up the product, that Jews are sober. Now, there doesn't seem to be a huge problem of alcoholism. I was interested to find there were Jewish alcoholics, but not on the level that you had in Polish Christian society. At the same time, this is right during the rise of the Hasidic movement. And Hasidism really fostered this very robust drinking culture. And so the way I resolved that seeming contradiction was, if you look at Hasidic drinking, it's very regimented, right? You have to drink, you have to do l'chaim, or as they used to call it, a tikkun. It's almost like a cosmic repair by taking a shot of vodka. It has to be attached to a life cycle event, to the Sabbath, Shabbat, to a festival. They found reasons to drink. These reasons were plentiful, but they were still, it wasn't like a freewheeling kind of a drinking atmosphere as you would find in the tavern.
That's all for this week's abbreviated web episode of Up Close. A reminder, you can see the full episode of Up Close on the Jewish channel on cable, or listen to the full audio of the show as a podcast available on iTunes and your favorite podcast player. The Jewish channel is available on cable: Time Warner Cable Channel 528, IO Optimum Channel 505, RCN Channel 268, Bright House Channel 330, Verizon Fios Channel 900, Cox Cable Channel 1, Frontier Communications, and on Comcast in the on-demand menu under Premium Channels. For more information, visit tjctv.com.